Industrialized domestication of human livestock and potential alternatives. Let's talk about debts and money. Today, in our strange little world, we have two kinds of debts. First of all, the virtual debts based on virtual money in our virtual economy. Well, it appears real to us, but really it's virtual. Let's talk about this a little later. More importantly and more dangerous, we've got real debts based on the exploitation and overexploitation of all the resources in our ecosystem. That doesn't go well for too long. It's basically a suicidal path, because overexploitation might eventually lead to a situation where our planet cannot sustain higher life forms. Anyhow, most of this exploitation is caused by the economic system based on virtual money. Let's talk about that some more. What are virtual debts? Originally, money was intended as a medium for time-shifted bartering, which means at some point of time you might get money for your work or your products, and then at a later point of time you could exchange it for other goods or work by somebody else. So basically all the money in our economic system was value-backed by something real, a real product, a real service. So money was equivalent to the total sum of services, products and values in our economy. Today, however, we have money that could buy 5 mint condition Earths. Now what does that mean? Actually, the meaning of this is quite simple. 4/5 of our money that is in circulation around the globe today could only buy virtual goods. So you could buy a virtual mansion on a virtual piece of land with a virtual pool on some virtual planet. Nothing real. The money today consists of nice coins, nicely printed pieces of paper, and most of all, ones and zeros in the computers of banksters. And this money is easy to manipulate. You can increase its volume by simply making more or typing on your keyboard. You can freely manipulate its value by inflation and deflation. So basically this virtual money that can buy virtual Earths is completely in the hands of banksters and free for them to manipulate. And the debt crisis based on all this virtual money is in all the media. But actually, what would happen if we got rid of it? Well, in reality, nothing would change. We would have the same amounts of fish in the sea. We would have the same amounts of forests, the same amounts of potable water, the same amounts of agricultural land. Without virtual money, in reality, nothing changes. Now let's talk about what the ideal money, not the virtual variant. What would that look like? Money is a transfer medium for time-delayed bartering of goods, products, raw materials, and work and services. So money equates the sum of all the natural resources on our planet, combined with what we create from them by human work and creativity. So the ideal money would be equivalent to all the resources, both natural and human, on the planet. So let's call it resource equivalent. The ideal money as a one-to-one mirror of our realities. Free of manipulation and speculation, it just reflects the effective status of the system Earth, and 100% exchangeable for real things, not just for virtual ones. Let's look at the value plots for resource equivalence, because the value of a resource equivalent of course evolves in the same way as the stuff that's backing it up. If we look at this year's harvest, that, well, next year will hardly be worth anything at all, because those goods don't last. If we look at some industrial plants that transform potable water into a chemical poisonous sludge, well, they are effectively reducing the value of the resources in our ecosystem. So basically, the effect they have on drinking water is destroying resource equivalence. And of course, by working, instead of getting money for your work, by working you create money. If you do something, if you create, if you invent, if you just work, well, you create resource equivalence. It would be interesting, of course, to measure our performance overall in our ecosystem, how well we manage our planet. The system of ecology, the sum of all our available resources, and economy, our way of dealing with these resources, distributing them, harvesting them, using them, creating with them, that gives us an interdependent eco-square system, where ecology and economy are entwined. The resource equivalent then gives us a measure of all these resources in our eco-square system. And it's a variable, because if we deforest, we reduce resource equivalence. If we plant more trees, we increase resource equivalence. If we work, we increase resource equivalence, and so forth. It's a variable system that gives us a status. We could measure it against something that is solid. We have about 170 metric tons of gold on our planet. That's a constant. We could use the gold standard as a constant to measure against. And then we could see if the ratio of REs to gold decreases, if we are managing non-sustainably, or if the ratio grows and we are managing sustainably. That's basically a good measure of how well we are doing in our ecosystem, of whether we are in a decreasing empty earth economy where the eternal growth is fueled by debts and the growth is happening in a limited system, so eternal growth is not really possible. And of course we are in violation of the laws of thermodynamics and common sense if you try to grow eternally in a limited system. So basically this empty earth economy with a decreasing resource equivalent to gold ratio means we are not managing sustainably. We are on the suicide path. If we manage sustainably in a full earth economy, a non-growth economy, sustainable and debt-free, we can of course grow, but only in quality, not in quantity. So don't be afraid of virtual debt. It's nothing real. Rather focus on how we can get back to a real economy based on a real transfer medium. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about all these topics and others in industrialized domestication of human livestock and potential alternatives.